Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Do Not Falter Battle Lounge with the 2MK team. Assuming that my sound is fine, then we are going straight in. Most of the things we've been looking into and over for the last few days with this game have mostly been about getting out of weird situations and defense. But seeing as it seems that we're starting with Omni Rabbit and myself, that's unlikely to be the first thing you see, since we tend to play a lot of neutral. Anti-aired, very anti-aired. The rest of the team has been working hard at figuring out their specific spacings and playstyles, so today I get to test out whether or not I can still pass through some of their options. Cancelled, huh? We'll appreciate in general that once you've won 3 sets that you rotate back regardless of anything else. But today we are set, and I think it will at least have the sets be first to 2, unlike last week where I had it off for a little bit. We've been working a lot on avoiding taking damage, and depending on the character you're facing, the method of doing this is different. Hitman, for example, deals good damage in neutral, but only under the positions and situations that you might not otherwise be able to take a lot of damage. So it's a bit of a switch for some people. For me, it's not as much of one. And misdirection will normally handle the rest for the Kuno's flow in general. Having multiple methods to stop the opponent from counter-attacking is obviously a big help. But of course you must still time your attacks correctly or bad things will happen to you. Similarly, from this position, my better bet is not specifically to go too hard, but to make sure I can kill without having to deal with another situation or mix-up. Because if I put Hitman in Awakening, I have to have a very clear plan of what to do from there, or I'm just going to die. As demonstrated. The lounge should be entirely open to all comers. You should be able to find it by looking for Aurelian. And you should be able to face us with a fairly good connection if you are anywhere near the Atlantic Ocean, I guess. This is our NA lounge, which means we often end up having people from a bit more places in the world. But generally, if you've got good internet, you can expect it to not be bad. Because we play such relatively neutral, heavy, simple characters, you don't see as much of the aforementioned making sure that you take less damage. Either because they're trying to read the motions of the other opponent and then do big damage from that specific scenario, or simply because the way that other characters get damage bypasses neutral more often. You're probably going to end up having to wait for someone else to show up who plays a more DNF conventional character. This game has multiple ways of lowering the damage you take in a given situation, but they're not always easy to understand based on just looking at the options available to you. For example, a lot of the defensive mechanics that you would expect to be fast enough to save you from bad situations are in fact not, and that lack of speed means that you can't use them as a solution to certain things. Of course, we're still not sure yet if making people have to think about their combos differently or drop things is actually going to result in long-term benefits, because it could simply be that there's always a route to actually keeping the damage up, and we just don't know them yet because people haven't had time to learn them all. This game is relatively free-form in particular ways, and that does mean there's a good chance that there are at least some of the structured methods that you will not be able to do anything about at all. Particularly once the conversion mechanic comes into play, but the way conversion works is somewhat limiting on people being able to do crazy damage just off of anything. While we haven't noticed people necessarily running away as much so far, there's definitely been some of it, and it can oddly give a benefit to not having to deal with pressure, simply because you dealt white health to the opponent but didn't manage to keep control of the situation. Their pressure becomes stronger from their end simply because they can convert, and they can usually convert with just the barest amount of grey health, which means they can get most of the regeneration from the grey health situation and still manage to find a way to get more pressure or more special attack styles out of it. That said, not every move converts well, so you do have to be somewhat careful about it. I'm always surprised by the verticality of that one. One of the main things that helps here for the Kunoichi is that her tick-throw game, as you could call it, is strong enough that you have to respond to it with specific things. That was supposed to be crouch B. I don't hit B a lot in this game. Basically never. I probably should find the spots at which it makes sense to do so, but at the moment it just doesn't happen. Obviously misdirection is about making your opponent want to do something and then they miss. That's basically all it ever comes down to in fighting games these days. But you'll notice that one of the things that I am managing somewhat is to minimize the damage taken, making my opponent work relatively hard for me not doing too much. The faster you get at recognizing where the kunoichi is, the more you're pushing the player to come up with new ways to mess with that perception you've got. But because she's such a versatile character in those terms, like I'm using like half the moves I have available to me now, mainly because those are the ones that will not get me hit by hitman neutral. But if I've managed to get the opponent to think about the fact that I'm dodging the moves, and therefore to start to think about different moves, then obviously I would need other tools. That was a moment I should have hit B. Oh, right, because it does that. But on the other hand, the more you push the Kuno player, the more likely they are to miss as well. So it is very much, not so much an execution test, because the moves you are doing are not hard to do, and the timing you're trying to do them at isn't explicitly negatively affected. Too slow. It is somewhat harder to do the same things to Launcher because in Launcher's case you're more so dodging. And this is basically true nearly regardless of what character you're playing. Launcher mostly wants to cover a lot of the screen with beams and similar, and not be caught off guard by movements through the air or other things that you could trick her with. But having good spacing and the ability to use the explosive effect to give her less options is going to be important for most people. Sticking closer does help in that she's less likely to use the beam, the long horizontal one. But because she has that range, you have to spend more time trying to convince your opponent to do a thing or not do a thing. But we're back to the same question as before. I can do this all day because I don't actually care whether or not my opponent manages to hit me for doing it with just the grenade. And because they can't be completely confident most of the time about whether or not they should do anything else, it's a little bit easier on me. That is the move I care about. You have to be very careful about that one. When your mana is high and you're both low on health, you can also afford to put out more things, but in matches like this where the good MP skills aren't really easy for either side to reach their position for, things get a little complicated. That's not a myth punish. Once I've conditioned my opponent to defend enough though, it becomes a little easier. Because then it is no longer anything they do, just my aim the whole time. course, the easier way to do this, as I've always said in these games, is when your opponent is very defensive, don't do anything. Once you've got the life lead, the fight is... If you're very, very good at offense to the point where your opponent basically can't counterattack you, getting to that point means the fight is over already. Part of the problem with playing launcher is when your opponent has a way out of your lockdowns, you have to be ready to react to them getting out. And depending on the character, this can be really dangerous. Because it ends up putting you in a mental situation where you can't necessarily do anything. You'll notice, for example, all my damage here has been taken basically because I'm attacking. And again. But that's the point of a character like this. You have to learn to attack in order to be able to misdirect people later. Of course, you can just do this by pressuring them. And so we continue on the boat for now. There is a benefit to learning just pressure. But pressure will often fail you in a game where awakening is available and where certain characters can easily convert off of their various awakening situations into optimal combos. Ah, I forgot that attack works there. Hesitancy is the key to getting through certain types of player. Because the ways that you want to defeat players who tend to do the same thing often are much more complicated, but not necessarily much more work. Hit that and did not confirm it. Which is again a bad situation because now my opponent could, if it came up, go for something related to conversion. No, that was supposed to be the other move. One of the things you'll want to learn as you get through the game more after you've learned pressure, therefore, is how to convert off hits in neutral that you weren't expecting, and you'll have to practice it quite a lot. Because as you've noted, this game does not tend to let you get away with other things. If you fail your conversion off of the big hit, then you are often punished quite heavily for it. Use every tool you have available to you though. Air shimmies, perfect spacing up on DP runs, whatever it takes. And of course you will mess them up. But the key is to always aim for something, some scenario that you believe in, where your opponent is going to do less damage to you if you're wrong. This game does allow for left-right mix-ups, but they're harder to do simply because you don't have any way to be sure that your opponent isn't just holding the block button instead of actually doing other things. The way to resolve this is usually to confuse your opponent about your block stun instead of which side you're on. And this game has lots of moves where there is a lot of block stun, and you have to learn to handle, like for example, doing that, or knowing the precise range of your moves so that you can do that, is related directly to that. notice again, we have heavily minimized damage here. Because your opponent can never be completely sure, oh, you're coming down, should I uppercut? Should I be preparing for a safe jump thing? Is my block stun right? Should I DP out of this? Can I guard cancel? You're much better off aiming for trickery based on your block stun on one of your delayed moves. And that was what makes this character work, as she has lots of that, as compared to some others that have pretty much none. This is the color counter pick you're looking at here. Worse than at least 2 stages that I know my opponent likes. I'm told it's harder to either find or join the lounge today. I'm not really sure why. But we've definitely got people who would like to get into it who seem to be unable to, and I might need to recreate it, but we are already close to the end of the stream portion, so maybe not today. I'm throwing so many kunai is because, as I've told this player many times before, just always doing things isn't really a solution to your problem. However, it does take a lot out of me to actually solve the thing they're presenting to me, and knowing when to switch back isn't going to be easy either. But no luck today. That said, it's still a functionally good way to approach things if you have the timing and spacing for it, because the shuriken just isn't doing that much damage. In fact, if you are the style of player who feels as if doing more things is good, the real concern is whether or not your opponent will manage to bait you into anything, not specifically taking little pokes from the shuriken. They are, as shuriken were always, a distraction because they are meant to add stress over time. Making, in fact, my bigger problem the fact that launcher's attacks shut down most of Kuno's other tools outright, more so than that I can't hit at all. If you are good enough at blocking, many of the moves that people use in neutral to try to get you are actually defendable. As long as you are not moving forward with the intention of actually playing neutral and just of seeing what you can get them to do to punish. This is why people can be thrown off by others who just don't react to that and will let you walk around in neutral freely, more or less. But obviously this is not as simple as it goes either, as you can just use moves you think will be safe until your opponent is frustrated of you doing that, and then finally get to hit them. This is neither a specific telling people to be defensive nor the opposite. It's much more complicated than that, because a lot of the time your goal is to make your opponent feel like you're playing offense, usually by going in after the knockdown, for example, especially if you've got the life lead and their like uppercut or whatever isn't terribly strong. To keep them on their toes, keep them on edge until it is clearer that no wait, you're not actually going for the big attack. Some people are in fact so twitchy about it that you can get them to time themselves out without actually stopping attacking. But this happens more in games like Unist. Here you tend to notice, partially because there are so many more options available because both people are at low health, just because they're at low health. Whereas in other games you might be at low health and low meter and have to deal with that, sitting around quietly in neutral, or mostly using space control that doesn't take too much of your MP. Eventually the player will look up at that greenish bar and go, oh wait, right, I can do like crazier things. One thing that makes it definitely in Launcher's best interest to keep going though, is because once she has enough white health on the other player, they don't necessarily want to try the conversion at all. And therefore she is in a way protected, even though the opponent might manage to regain all that health eventually. It is at least at the point where she has to make a mistake before most people will go all in and just try to get a conversion combo. The other good reason for this is because most of the time if you hit this character, you don't have to convert. Chances are that you knew that you were going to hit, you knew the range you were hitting at, you've been thinking about it for probably the last 20 seconds. And you don't really care. You could get longer combos. There are definitely a few characters who can get more out of conversion. Berserker in particular has a good reason to do this. But most of us just hit and do the combo until it's over. Well, it looks like we are going into our last on-stream match of the night. We are probably going to be hanging around for a bit, but I might recreate the lounge because I don't know why people can't get in. I feel the pink hair is not helping with the camouflage here. Why don't you have a hood? You can just wrap the scarf around your head. Not a confirm. Tomorrow we'll be back with another mishmashing battle lounge in Street Fighter V. And we've not had as much luck getting our Melty Blood, our Tuesday Melt, or Wednesday Night in Birth streams happening, partially because of this game, but also partially because of just not being in the right space at the right time, let's say. Our other content though, such as bots, also hasn't been terribly available recently, simply because there's no bot work we can do for this game given its current system, or rather, the bot work we could do is not helpful to anyone but us. And as a result, you're not going to see much from us. Other bots though for older games you can find at 2-mk.org, and they can be useful if you are a fan of such games for getting you started on other aspects of fighting games that are not necessarily easily worked on when playing this one. Damage minimized again. Whether or not we are actually streaming our Tuesday Melt, Wednesday Night in Birth, or feeling Thursday Battle Lounges, you'll find on our Twitter 2_MK_FGC. If we haven't tweeted by like 7:45 as we normally work at Central European time and Eastern time, both 7:30 PM in that zone. If we haven't tweeted anything by 7:45, which is often the case with the EU stream as we don't have those as often, assume we're not streaming that day. However, we will sometimes let you know if we are having a lounge anyway, because sometimes that's the answer to our situation relative to availability or something. Generally, we'll try to keep our streams to 1 hour. Today has gone over a little bit because the match got longer. And usually this lounge itself stays open for a while, but once again, this time I'm going to try to reset it maybe. And with that, we've come to the end of the stream. This has been Rillian, 142MK. Good luck with your training and good night, everyone.